You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome. This episode is brought to you by the Dog House OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Dog House have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Dog House. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC. And hopefully our pups will run into each other. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode up in Guthrie, America. Today, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you my guest, Mr. Dane Lausen, who is the Guthrie Fire Chief. Dane, thanks so much for inviting me into your office today.
Yeah, thank you for coming up. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I think I said this earlier. I've never been into a fire station before, but compared to the UK, the US fire stations, they're definitely a lot cooler, I think. I think your fire trucks are a lot cooler than our ones. They're a lot bigger. I don't know, fire. I think the 6-year-old boy in me is just giddy getting the chance to just have a look around a fire truck, right? And I don't think you ever lose that as a guy.
Sure, yeah.
So excited to hear some stories about kind of your story and you know, Guthrie. I freaking love coming up here. Obviously, we know a lot of the same mutual friends, and it's always fun to come up here and got to hit Missy's Donuts on the way out.
Oh,
staple.
That's the spot. Yeah,
have to do it.
That is the spot.
But yeah, it's awesome coming up here. Really appreciate your time. For people listening, they may hear some things in the background. We are in your office. This is a working fire station,
yes.
So if the alarms go off, we'll have to cut this short and come back. Yeah. Emergencies take precedent over our podcast. But if we do get through today, I'm excited to dive in and share some stories. Let's talk a little bit about you, man. You're born and raised here.
Yeah, I was born and raised here. Attended Guthrie High School. I graduated in 2006. After I graduated, I went to OSU OKC and started taking some fire classes. I obtained my EMT basic. After that, in 2009, I was blessed with a job opportunity here in Guthrie, and I've been working here ever since. In 2017, I promoted to lieutenant, and then in last year in June of 23, Chief Harlow retired. It was something, fire chief was always a goal of mine, but at the time, I felt like I wasn't ready, but in the same breath, it kind of worried me because we're also having a changeover with a new city manager. Mm-hmm. So whenever you have two significant department heads retiring at the same time,
there it is.
It kind of concerned me.
Yeah.
So after sitting down,
you're good. We'll pause.
Yeah. So whenever I sat down with my wife and talked to her about it,
for male seizures.
It was something I wanted to go after and pursue. So I put in for it, and I was blessed with the opportunity to get the position.
Yeah. Born and raised here. Tell me a little bit about how, Guthrie's changed over the years, how you've seen it. And obviously you're here every day. You're in the thick of it. You're not only, a resident, but you work for the city as well, right? That's a kind of a unique position to be in, especially as someone that's born and raised in this town. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how it's been over the years and the good, the bad, the growth. I come up here to Red Brick Nights when it's on and walk around. There's so many great things that are coming to Guthrie, and I think it's still a hidden gem. But actually, my first time to Guthrie, I came to the Mumford & Sons concert.
Awesome.
In college.
That was a
massive
event. And then just kind of hit on Guthrie. I always tell my wife and my boss, they get frustrated with me. I say, I've been here short 15 years working here. And I say short 15 years because I'm one of those guys, I don't want to act like I've been here and done it. This job constantly is evolving. So there's something new all the time. So I always say a short 15 years. Once I act like I know it all, that's whenever I need to get out. So just to hit on that, Guthrie we're gaining a lot of momentum, and I'm excited about it. In my short 15 years, this is the most momentum I've ever seen. The citizens just passed a CIP extension tax, which is going to allow us to build a second station down south. It's desperately needed. And it passed by 80%. And so we're going after the school is doing another bond, stuff's passing. The citizens see it and they see the results of it. And I'm so blessed to be a part of it. I'm really excited about Guthrie's future.
Yeah. I mean, as like I said, as a resident too, right? Not just someone who works here, but and we'll dive into why it's so needed that you guys have another station on the south side in a little bit. But tell me a little bit about that kind of inner child in you that it seems like you wanted to be a fire chief or fireman from a very young age.
Yeah. So I lived over here. It's just a couple of miles down the street off of Noble and Capitol, and we were right next to Noble, which is one of our main highways coming in and out of town. And every day the fire trucks blazing by. So I was like, man, that's just awesome. And then also I'm a little adrenaline junkie. What makes me love the job so much too is that you come in every day not knowing what you're going to get yourself into. I mean, every day is different. And that's why I'm telling you that the job's constantly evolving. So, every call's different. And that's what I like the most is you've got to stay on your toes. The continuing education for this job, the training you got to do for this job. It's a lot. But that's what I love the most about it, because you walk in every day like, I don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully I'm prepared. So.
Yeah. It's exciting, right?
Yeah.
It's not, and so many times on this podcast, we've talked to people who, have said the same thing. Like they love their job because it's different every day, and they get to evolve, but also the continual learning side of it too. Right. And you mentioned the MT. I mean, there's so much things to go on there to learn on that side as well, and then technology too, and fighting fires and figuring all that stuff out. Right. Like there's always something to learn. Back to that kid in you. So seeing those fire trucks driving around. You go to high school, you go to OSU OKC because that's clearly the plan from a young age.
Right, and it's been a blessing. I love getting up and coming to work every day, and that's just it's important. And then just walking around town in a uniform, people just say, "Hey, thank you for your service and stuff." It gives you a sense of pride. And then it makes you like the job even more. And then people appreciating what you do. It makes you feel good inside.
Yeah. Do you have family members that were in service as well or not?
No. So both of my parents taught in the Guthrie public school systems. My mother was a secretary for Cotterell schools, and she's been there over 35 years. And then my dad taught for over 30 years too. So they were both in the Guthrie public school system, which was kind of, I was a problem child growing up. So, every time I did something, they knew about it immediately.
Right.
So, but yeah, they just retired, and then they're still doing part-time work for the schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That small town teacher stuff too, right?
Yeah,
Can't get anywhere without doing anything wrong.
Yes, yeah.
Everyone's going to know about it. Yeah. And I'm sure that the other way too is all of your parents' friends and parents were also equally able to discipline you as well.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That small town. So
that's what I'm saying. You couldn't do anything without someone knowing about it.
There's accountability everywhere.
Yes, there is.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a brother. He unfortunately passed away like 10 years ago, and then I have a sister as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Were they Guthrie?
Yeah, they were.
Guthrie?
Yeah, they went to Guthrie public
awesome.
schools as well.
Yeah. So big Guthrie family. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm sure mom and dad have a lot of pride of you too, right? They get to see, their son being the fire chief and all that kind of stuff, right? And
Yeah.
I'm sure mom and dad as teachers probably wanted you to grow up and be a teacher one day, but
right. Yeah.
Fire chief's pretty close.
It felt really good telling them whenever I promoted the fire chief, because they were really happy.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. So you go to OSU OKC to do kind of your fire education, I guess, right?
Sure.
Your classes. Tell me about that. What's that like when you go to OSU OKC? Why do you have to go there rather than going somewhere else? And then what was the trajectory from there? Like, do you mentioned getting a job here, but there's a gap that we need to fill there. So
sure. So whenever I went to OSU OKC, I got like my basic certs, and then OSU OKC it's not only the only fire school. There's OSU in Stillwater. There's EOC in Choctaw. There's a couple of programs you can go to, but I chose OSU OKC as close to home. And then I was also working I call it my second job. It was actually my first job. I was working at a pharmacy called Pharmacy Solutions. It's ran by my father-in-law. And I was getting that, working through school, paying for school, all of that. And that job actually was a blessing in disguise, because just dealing with medications every day, and learning about them and what they're for. So now, today, if we have a call, an ambulance call, I can walk into the house, look in their medicine cabinet, and gain a medical history off of it, just looking at their meds. I went through, got my certs, and like I said, this job's evolving constantly, so I'm still going to classes today. My wife has her master's degree, but I probably still have more college hours than she does, just because going to classes. So in 2017, whenever I told you I promoted to lieutenant, I also obtained my advanced EMT license. So, I'd start IVs, give some meds, all that, just because, we're, like I told you earlier, we're 80% EMS driven, and we run the ambulance. So that was important to go get that, just to provide a higher level of care to the Guthrie citizens. And then we, get Fire 2 classes, just more classes. Everything was for a purpose and reason. Some of these classes are required, but there's also goals I was trying to hit to ultimately land this fire chief's position.
Yeah, there's steps along the ladder, right? And pieces of paper, quote, you have to get, and achievements and all the rest of it to qualify for the position that you're in, and obviously you've done that. Before we dive into you taking over, 80% of the EMT stuff, like that's a lot of work. Yeah. You mentioned working at your father-in-law's business. How'd you meet your wife?
So she's going to kill me for saying this, but in 2004, she went to Santa Fe High School in Edmond, and she was doing POM. And, I don't know if you remember AOL Messenger or not.
I had an AOL, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess today's term is sliding into the DMs.
It is,
well,
yeah.
So she messaged me on AOL Messenger. So I guess you can say she slid into my DMs. So Edmond Santa Fe, they were sharing Watland Stadium, UCO.
Okay.
So they sometimes play on Thursdays. So our football games were always on Fridays usually. So she messaged me, said, hey, the game's on Thursday. Do you want to come up and hang out? So I was like, sure. So from there, the rest is history. We've been together since 2004. We got married in 2010. We have 2 boys. They're 11 and 9. They're about to be 12 and 10. The oldest is Cooper, and our youngest is Luke.
Yeah.
They're great. They're a handful. You know, my youngest gives me a run for my money sometimes, and my mom's like, well, it's just payback for how he treated us growing up. So, no, we're very blessed. My wife is a teacher in Edmond. She just actually got promoted to assistant principal.
Nice.
So we're excited about that. There's been a lot of good things that have happened in our life the last year, and we're blessed. We're humble, which is the most important thing is that I want to hit on is, you know, we realize we have been blessed, but we also want to remember, hey, we're humble and, you know, just don't take things for granted.
Things go downhill when you start taking things for granted, right? Like
exactly.
life will bite you in the ass.
Yeah, it can turn around quick.
Totally.
So,
and it's
just as fast as our life happened the last year, it can crumble just as quick.
Yeah.
So
I was watching, because of the podcast world, and I listen to a lot of podcasts or see a lot of social media clips and whatever, and I think there was an interview with, it was Orlando Bloom, or someone said, you know, every time it was talking about kind of interacting with people, and the guy asked him, you know, why are you so good every day with everyone you meet? You know, you're a celebrity, you meet all these people all the time. And he's like, you know, sometimes you don't know if you're ever going to meet that person again, which is a celebrity. The likelihood is you're never going to meet that person again. But he was relating it to everyday life. He's like, you know, whoever you come across in your life, you don't know that tomorrow they might not wake up, right? Or something could happen. We don't know that. And it's like, it's we take life for granted, don't we?
We do. And I'm guilty of it all the time. You know, and I try to remind myself, like, hey, I'm blessed just to wake up every day. But yeah, it's interesting how, you know, sometimes you just, like you said, take life for granted sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and also you get to see it a lot more, right, with the position that you're in, you know, around, you know, the services, you know, you're around tragedy
a lot, right? You get a phone call, something bad has happened, and that's why they call you.
Exactly.
You know?
So people aren't calling us because they're having the best day, right?
It's not always helping cats get down from trees.
Exactly. Right? So, yeah, just like driving home from work, I mean, taking that for granted, you know, you're not always going to make it home potentially. I mean, we run on car wrecks all the time, and people unfortunately pass away, and you didn't realize that when you were waking up in the morning. And maybe you were having a bad day and didn't say bye and kiss your spouse. You know, it's the little things in life, you know, that you got to remember. You're so blessed. Just wake up. You're blessed, you know. Yeah. So that's what I try to remember every day.
Yeah, no doubt. Tell me about, because I'm just to get this again, the 6-year-old child in me.
What is it like driving a fire truck with the lights on for the first time?
You know,
like,
it's that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's great. You know, when fire drops, you know, it's unfortunate, but this is what we signed up to do. You know, that happens, and we get amped up. We go and we do our best to, you know, protect the house, save people, just all the above. And that's what I'm telling you. I think that's what makes me love the job the most is the adrenaline side of it, and then just not knowing what we're getting ourselves into. Like you just heard, the ambulance tone drop. So, you know, it's a seizure, and we don't necessarily know what's going on. Is it their first seizure? Is it this, that? So whenever you're going to a call, you're just playing it out in your head. I mean, the call starts when the tone drops. So, and it doesn't finish until you're back at the station, back in service.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I love the most. And just,
it makes you be a little kid when you get in a truck and drive fast, you know.
For those people listening, I'm sure not a lot of us know the actual, like, you know, the 4 or 5 guys that jump in the truck, their positions, what they do. So if you want to nerd out and tell me as much information as you possibly can, because I want to know too, of, like, you know, obviously you got a driver, you got, you know, navigator, whatever it is, like your stock, let's say, fire trucks. I know you have a bunch of.
Absolutely.
What are the positions? What are the guys doing? Like, what's the team, I guess? Right.
Yeah. So we're a very unique department. We're fire-based EMS, and so basically we run EMS alongside fire. So every day right now we've got
32 people, including myself. So 11, 10, and 10. And we try to stay at a 7-man minimum. We usually have 2 people off or 2 in class and whatnot. So our day always tries to start with 9-man shifts. And then we're cross-staffed, so meaning that guys fight fire and they also go on ambulances. So we've got captains that have been here 25 years and they still hop on that ambulance and take a call. So we ran last year. We ran about 3,700 calls, and that's out of one station. And that one station is covering over 500 square miles. And just to put into perspective how massive that is Oklahoma City is a little over 600 square miles. And we're not as big as Oklahoma City. We don't have near call volume
they have, but just to put in perspective how massive our coverage area is. So yeah, and then I think last year we also ran about 700 fires, and that's not all house fires. That's your fire alarms, grass fires, because we run a lot of rural areas, so we get a lot of massive grass fires. I don't know if you can recall last year, but we called it Simpson Road Fire, and it burned quite a bit of acreage, and we were on that for 2 days. So yeah, we not only do we run, the ambulance and stuff like that, but we also run the fires. We mutual aid with a bunch of people inside the county. There's 14 different volunteer departments inside the county, and there's one combination.
So yeah, we stay very, very busy.
Yeah, no doubt. Back to the team though.
Yeah.
Dive in on that. What's like the say the one truck or 2? Oh, you have 1 or 2 trucks here.
We've got 6 ambulances.
Okay.
We've got several fire trucks. We've got some tankers. We've got a couple of rescues. So being on the suppression side of things that I did for 14 years, and then coming to this side, just gives you such a massive respect for what those guys do day in and day out. Just to tell you a little bit, I don't know if you know if our shift schedule works, but we do 24-hour shifts, about 10 days a month.
Okay.
And they're rotating between 3 crews. And so whenever they come in at 0700 in the morning, they don't leave until 0700 the next morning. And then, so we run, like I said, fires, EMS calls, car wrecks, all that stuff. We cover a lot of highway. So we get a lot.
Your stretch of highway is not really known for its safety, is it, out here? Like the 2-lane highway that you guys have is not.
It's nonstop.
There's always something in rush hour traffic.
We're constantly running car wrecks, but yeah, just what those guys do. So we had a study done. I was union president at the time, and we had a study done that showed we're supposed to be operating with 45 guys in 3 stations. Well, we got 1 station and 32 guys. So what those guys can do with what they're provided, it's incredible. I look up to those guys, whenever I got this job, I had 3 battalion chiefs that have over 25 years of experience, and they vouch for me. What they do, I can't put into words like how awesome they are.
Yeah, that's great to have that, a part of your team, but also know that, you're running lean and you guys have, you figured it out. There's nothing better than a cohesive team that works together perfectly, right? You don't, sometimes if you bring in more people, it might mess things up.
Right,
you guys all have your spot.
Yeah, and I just put in for a SAFER grant, and we put in for 6 additional people, and it's covered for the salaries and stuff are covered for 3 years. So hopefully down the road we can figure out how to keep those guys too as well. So, what they do day in and day out is it's incredible. And they've just gotten so good at doing what they do with what limited, bodies we have here.
Yeah. You mentioned having the city voted for a new station. Over 80% people voted. Tell me about that and what that's going to do for your job, but also the services that you'll be able to provide out of that station.
So we had it's called a capital improvement tax, and it was set to sunset in 31. Well, the voters just added 15 years onto that. And one of the projects is a second station, which is we've desperately needed it, and we're looking at a couple of spaces down there at Sooner Division, which is right next to the highway, to where we can hop on the highway and go north or south, and that's going to be massive, not only for fire but our ambulance district as well. So I was actually mapping some times, and we've got a truck stop just 2.5 miles from here. Well, the station over there is about over 5 miles, but away. But we can actually get close faster to the response area, to this truck stop. So the second station location is not only going to benefit the southeast and southwest portions of the county, but it can also benefit the northeast. So we're going to be able to cover 3/4 of the county out of that one station. And it's something that the guys here need, but most importantly, our citizens deserve to, just better our response area, better, everything. So when there's an emergency, time is of the essence. So the quicker we get there, the more we can stabilize the situation.
Yeah, you're saving lives, right? And
right.
This, it's and in those cases, seconds matter, don't they?
Exactly.
Exactly. Out of curiosity, how much does the average fire truck cost? I have no idea.
Wow. So that's a great point. I don't have to hit on inflation too much.
I'm sure they're not cheap.
Yeah. Inflation, I don't have to. Everyone knows about inflation now. I mean, everyone's gone through it, and it's just a fire truck today. Like, we just got a new engine, and it was about $480,000. Well, that same truck today is over $800,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we got two new ambulances in 2020, 2 new Fords. Well, that same we bought it for like $217,000. That same truck today is over $400,000. And it's insane. And then, not only has the cost just doubled or even more, the production time has slowed down because you're trying to get these cabin chassis and all this stuff. So I just ordered a cabin chassis from Vance Fleet about 6 months ago, and it's still not even in production. So it makes it a challenge to prepare for that in the future.
Yeah.
And especially with the budget and all that stuff, it's insane.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, they have to be in top shape to get to there as fast as possible, right? So you got to keep it maintained. Yeah. What's the average life then of a truck? So
that's a great question. What people don't realize is we just had one of our medium duty rescues. One of the engines had catastrophic failure. It's a 2000 model. Some people are like 24 years, we should still be able to get a little bit more life out of it. Well, a fire truck is a lot different than civilian light vehicles. I mean, these trucks you get a call, you fire it up, and you are hammered down on it. Yeah. And these trucks can get on scene. They can idle, 5 minutes, or they can idle 10 hours. You just never know what kind of scene you're going to be on. So the wear and tear the vehicles take are not your everyday civilian life, but I would say if you take care, we've got maintenance programs and all that, but if you take care of them, you can get 20 years out of them plus. Yeah. So.
Yeah. You got some really cool photos in your office behind you. Yeah. Tell me about them. I think one of them is at the fiddle shop. Yeah, sadly.
One of them was the fiddle shop. That was a very unfortunate day. It's just the odds were stacked against us that day. We're a mile down the road from that fire, and the winds were like 40 miles an hour that day. And whenever we got the call, you could see the smoke already from the station. When it's wind driven like that, you're lucky to slow it down. We got lucky because, in a sense, if the wind was blowing west, we'd have probably lost that whole block. Yeah. But it was a very unfortunate day. That fiddle shop was a staple mark of this town. People all around the country flew in just to see that shop and buy stuff. And so we also lost a flower shop as well. It's just an unfortunate day. But thankfully, no one was hurt in the fire. That's the most important thing. Things can always be replaced.
Yeah, that's the tough part, right? Is like, especially you growing up here and having the history of knowing everything and seeing something like the fiddle shop, and you see the fire from the station, you see the smoke, you think, this is not good, right?
It was a long day. It was a 2-day battle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about the other two that are up there?
So that new engine we just talked about, we got engine one. It was our most recent engine that's put into service, and then our ladder truck over there.
Mm-hmm.
So we just put that in service not long before the fiddle shot fire.
Mm-hmm.
So they went up to Wisconsin to get built. So that's why you see them in front of the Green Bay's Packers Stadium. So it's not far from there. And they,
That's cool.
take the truck over there to get a picture in front of the stadium. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, that is really cool. I was I had to put my glasses on to see where they were, but it's like that's definitely not in Oklahoma.
Right.
Yeah. No, that is really neat though, right? Just to have that and that's one thing we don't do is take photos and print photos anymore, sadly, but it is fun to see proper photos being printed and like again, back to the 6-year-old child, when you get a new fire truck, that's kind of cool, right?
Oh,
it reminds you of that little toy that you used to get,
toy,
right?
Climbing all over it.
It's
fun stuff.
One thing I think a friend of mine is working at Oklahoma City, somewhere in Oklahoma City Fire Department. He gave up being a lawyer and became a fireman. Says it's the best decision he ever made. Never hasn't worn a suit since. But the first thing he did do was grow a mustache, and I gave him so much crap for it. But that is a real thing, right? The fireman mustache is a real thing.
We've got a couple of guys here too that haven't, but man, my wife hates it. Oh, she hates it. So sometimes I grow it just to be inspired, Yeah. But yeah, the mustache is the iconic, look, I guess you could say, of a firefighter. Well, so part of it, I think is that's basically all the facial hair we can have.
Okay.
So we can't have full beards just because of our SCBA mask.
Okay.
So we got to have a tight seal for whenever we go into a house fire, and we put on our air pack and stuff, and it's just compressed air, normal air. So whenever you have facial hair, you don't get that good seal, and then smoke can enter your face piece. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about kind of getting into your current role now. Obviously, you're a fire chief here. What, for people listening, what is the official like? Here's my job description. I'm the fire chief. This is my role.
Right. So, like I said, it was June of 23 when the city manager, Leroy Alsop, and then the fire chief, Eric Harlow, both basically retired at the same time. And like I said, it wasn't a goal of mine yet. It's a little early, but it kind of scared me. Just that much turnover, and just me being from this town. And I'm not saying I was the best suited for this position by any means, but I felt like I could be ready. But I thought with that massive turnover that I could provide stability to the situation. So I put in for it and got it. And in turn, the city manager has actually provided me some stability, the new city manager.
Oh, really?
He's been awesome to work for. He challenges me every day. But yeah, just coming in, doing daily operations every day, balancing the budget. Whenever I got the job, the city manager's like, well, when can you start? And I was on shift. And I was like, I'll start tomorrow whenever I get off shift at 0700. He's like, no, take a break. Get your bearings straight, and then come in. So the next day is a Wednesday. I started, and he called me into the office. He's like, "Hey, by the way, your budget's due in a couple of days." And I'm like, "Awesome, okay." Yeah. So I hadn't done it yet, and I just got thrown to the fire. And looking back, I feel so blessed about it. I know that sounds weird, but I learned so much so quickly. I mean, I had to, the new city manager was thrown to the wolves too. And so we're both learning at the same time. And looking back, I said, I'm blessed because I learned so much. And then, just coming in, doing the budget, taking care of everyday operations. Like, for example, my second day, 4 out of our 5 ambulances broke down. So we're sitting here running calls, and I've got one ambulance, and I'm just like, what is going on? So I got challenged quick, needless to say. But I love it. Like I said, I come to work every day. I'm just happy. I'm blessed, and I'm humbled.
Yeah. to that point then, as someone then who is, you've been in the career, you've had leadership roles leading up, but then obviously, like I said, you're thrown into, no pun intended, into the fire.
Yeah.
And kind of like, wow, like I'm really like the guy now. I have to lead all these things, and you have to adapt and learn quick and pivot and figure it all out. What are the lessons that you've taken from that, and key points that you would tell anybody who is going into your position or any position of leadership that you would share that, these are the key things that I focused on and I think people in leadership should really work on too?
Yeah. So my biggest deal is, like I said, I keep harping on it, is I'm humble. Yeah. And then the second is, not everyone's like this, but you get some of the older school mentality, like these new guys, hey, they got to come in and earn the stripes. They're not going to set the kitchen table and eat breakfast until, they've earned respect type deal. But, I'm kind of different in that sense. Like I said, the job constantly evolves. So I don't know everything. I've been here short 15 years. I always want to say short 15 years. And a guy coming in from school, fresh out of school, he may know something that could benefit me. So my biggest deal is I always want to be open and learning new things. And just because a guy just came out of school and doesn't have, the job experience yet, they may teach you something. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to, always be like, is humble, constantly learn from new guys, but not to take away that experience does matter, because it does. There's, like I said, the 3 battalion chiefs, they've been over here 25 plus years. They've got 10 more years on the job than I do. And I respect that as well. And I learn from them every day. But that's how I want to lead. Like, we're a team. Okay. And this mentality of younger guys don't know anything or stuff like that, it's just, I don't like it, so. Yeah.
And you've got, you guys who have 24-hour shift, you got a lot of. I mean, you might not be, so as probably, do you work a 9 to 5 now? Is that kind of how it looks?
Yeah, 8 to 5.
8 to 5. Yeah. So the other guys, like on your previous kind of schedule, there's a lot of time here, right? Like, how do we keep everyone occupied and busy, but also ready at the same time?
Yeah. And you got to build these young guys up.
Yeah.
They're our future, and whenever we leave, we have to leave it with them. Mm-hmm. So building them up and stuff like that, that's what I try to focus on.
Yeah.
So,
how do the guys stay occupied and busy during the day, or for the 24 hours, other than scroll social media?
You just heard it. Yeah. You just heard it. So like I said, we stay so busy.
Okay.
So in 2013, our overlapping calls were 8%. Today,
oh wow.
Today, the overlapping calls are approaching 50%. Wow. So you just heard that one call go out. Yeah. Well, it's most likely we're going to have another one. Oh, wow. So those guys really, really stay hooked up. But yeah, so like when they have their downtime, we always try to train or do something. Now there's days that they got destroyed the last shift and just ran to the ground. They come back, they're wore out because, whenever you get off here, you got to go be a parent. You got to go maybe do a second job. Like, you may have off that day in between shifts, but it's not really off. So yeah, they have their downtime to where, they'll play Xbox or whatever, mess around with the cops. The cops always come over here like, oh, you got the recliners, da-da-da-da-da. So it's fun jabbing back and forth. But yeah, we always try to train on our downtime. The guys, a lot of the guys, over half the people here work out, stay shape. They get their gear on, go outside, throw some ladders. That's what we try to do with our downtime. But we do have those days where maybe we're not as busy. We try to relax if we, the guys got. And I take that into account too, because I've been on that side of it, and I know how much it sucks to, be up all night and then have the day in between, go try to be a parent, go to sports. It can be mentally exhausting.
Yeah. You mentioned you had another job when you were doing this, or when you were going through school. Does a lot of the firemen have other part-time gigs that they do then, just to stay occupied or make more income?
Yeah, they do to supplement income. Yeah. A lot of firemen have second jobs usually. So I'd sometimes take off a couple of tours and go work my second job and make some extra money. But yeah, it's very common. I did my second job for about 14 years. And it was taxing. So you get, like I said, you get off here after a 24-hour shift and then go work another 8 hours, and it wore on you.
Yeah.
So,
what are you most proud of over your last 15 years? What stands out as maybe some of your proudest moments?
my wife and kids, and then my family. Yeah, watching those boys. We've been so blessed. I can't say it. I'm gonna get upset, but I've been blessed. But watching them grow up is pretty sweet.
Did any of them share kind of your passion as a young kid to become a fire chief or fireman?
So my youngest, my wife was upset. So he came up here because he's a little adrenaline junkie too, and he stayed up here full 24 hours. And he's like, "Dad, I want to be the fireman. I want to be a fireman." So it makes me feel good inside as a dad, maybe looking up to me as a hero or something. But he came up here, he did the breakfast, he went and checked off the trucks with us. And I had a call that I had to go on, so he stayed back with some of the guys. Well, while I was on that call, they took him up in our ladder truck. You see in that picture over there, 110 feet. And he didn't care. They videotaped it and sent it to me. And then so I sent it to my wife, and she's like, "Are you kidding me?" She's like, "He is not welcome back to the station anymore without me there." So he ate it up. I'll go up there in the 110 feet, but sometimes it gets a little, especially on a windy day, my ladder moves a little bit. It can worry you a little bit. So he didn't even bat an eye. So he is fearless. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. But I loved it. He even stayed the night here, slept in the bed. And we actually had a busy night that night. And so I was tired the next day. I was like, "Hey, bud, did you sleep good? Through all those calls?" And he's like, "What calls?" I was like, "Man, must be nice." I should have made him get up and go with us. Like, "Wake up. You're coming on the call."
Yeah, the reality of doing this for a full 24 hours and then taking in everything. But I mean, the cool thing is that, like your kids kind of grow up here with 30 uncles, right? Or 30 big brothers, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the mentality of it, which is really cool to look at.
That morning we were playing basketball, we were throwing the baseball. He's just eating it up, and he loved it. So, and the guys, they treated him so good, and it was fun.
Yeah. The other question I like to ask people is, do you have any prized possessions here?
Oh man, prized possessions here. I mean, the fire and ambulance vehicles. I mean, there was. They would sign our checks basically. So I guess you could call those our prized possessions.
But nothing personal that you're like, I mean, if this place were to go up and smoke, this is the first thing I'm grabbing.
Yeah. There's a lot. So, I mean, pictures. Those are, we've got a lot of pictures on the wall. The guys started that. They approached me about putting pictures on the wall in the hall of like calls. Just kind of build morale type deal. So we'd probably be grabbing those. Pictures are hard to replace. Yeah,
it's because you guys are in the equivalent of team sport, right? Like a lot of people who work, they might work in teams, but when you're out working, a disaster or working some event that it's not great, but you come together and you either save someone's life or you save a house, whatever it is, like. There is, like you said, you're an adrenaline junkie. There's endorphins there, and there's a team and a camaraderie built around that. Right. No doubt the pictures of that remind you of those successful times, right? The hard times you've gone through to get to where you're at now.
And we try, so whenever we have a scene like that's unfortunate, we try not to take a picture in front of the scene or whatever, but we try to get in front of the fire truck. I mean, it's memories. That's going to be stuff that you do a 25-year career, you can go back and look at and remember those guys. I mean, people don't realize we spend more time up here than we do at home. And that's another thing that I kind of would like to hit on is my wife, she used to teach here in Guthrie. She taught here 9 years. And then she approached me about moving to Edmond, and because she had got a job offer, she couldn't really refuse. And I was like, I don't want to move. I'm born and raised here. And then I started looking back. I was like, man, how selfish am I if I don't support her career after she supported mine for so long? Because with our 2 boys and my job, she's a single parent, 10 days a month. We're doing 24-hour shifts. And then if we we're up all night. I come home and sleep. So more than that. So that kind of struck me, and I was like, how selfish am I if I don't support her? So we're 2 miles outside the school district. Like I said, it paid off. She just got a promotion. She's doing really well. But yeah, it's been good.
Having that little check is probably good for you,
Yes.
right? You know, but
Yeah, exactly.
And the career span of a firefighter and I sat down. Shout out to Billy, who's in the group that I meet with on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
We had a guest speaker come in, and he was from the Edmond Police Department. And he retired, but he also talked about the life expectancies, which shocked me, and I couldn't believe the life expectancies of an emergency service person who didn't have anything to do post retirement, right? And I know mental health is kind of like a big topic, and it has been more current, recent, easier to talk about, if you will, more common. But it's true, right? Like the stress that you guys are under, not just in work, but when you talk about going home and keeping your wives happy, keeping your kids happy, like it all adds up,
It does.
And you need that support system around you.
Right.
So yeah, it's and having a team here is obviously a huge part of that.
Right. So, been very blessed with built a couple of relationships at Edmond. They've got a debriefing team, and there's been a couple of calls here. I reached out to them, and they came up and talked to the guys, and been really blessed. And I know you talked about some calls, so tomorrow we've got the danger of tornadoes. Yeah. Well, I went down to May 2013, and we went to Plaza Towers. Our crew did, and that was. I still think about that day. But what affected me the most, which just sounds kind of weird, but there's one wall standing, and all the backpacks were still on that wall. And it was just like, it struck me. I was like, oh my gosh. It's just, but yeah, so mental health in this job is huge. And then the life expectancy, like you said, they say this job takes 10 years off your life. And I 100% believe it. And then just with all the carcinogens that we're faced with in fires every day, our cancer risk goes up like 100%. And then they say the stuff in your gear that we wear every day that's supposed to be protecting us also causes cancer. So this job's a big sacrifice. Yeah. So, but it's also very rewarding in the same breath. I mean, we do have calls like the May tornado, but in the same breath, we may go out and, not too long ago, we had a call where one of the grandparents of a softball person, had a cardiac arrest. We got him back. He walked out of the hospital. So when you see that makes the job so worth it. So that's the side that can be rewarding. And then what else is rewarding is the brotherhood up here. So to help with the mental stuff, we try to get together outside of the department and just hang out, go play around of golf. I just did that the other day with a couple of the guys, and it's great to get outside of work and then talk about positive things. Not that negative things are talked about, but people are always calling us on their bad days. So
yeah. You mentioned the tornado, and obviously Oklahoma is not uncommon for natural disasters, right? Or we have. This podcast will go out next week, which is the week after the Memorial Marathon running. The people running on Sunday. We're recording just before that. Are you guys doing anything this weekend?
Yeah, we have like 3 or 4 guys that are going out and doing it.
Yeah.
One of the lieutenants here, he's in one of the best shapes of the entire department. Yeah. And he goes and does it, and he does it in his full gear. And he wears an air pack. He also does the 9/11 stair climb every year. And then he gets those guys out and works them out every day. It's great, and that also builds team camaraderie. So it's nice to see, and the guys, they'll go out there and cut up and laugh, and it's nice.
Yeah. Is there any inter kind of like competitions between you and other stations, whether it's like CrossFit, fitness, running, baseball, golf, whatever it is? Like, do you guys have any like leagues or anything you compete in to get the guys together? When you
so this is kind of funny. We did a fire department and police department like softball tournament one time, and the fire chief was like, never again, because we had like the first game we had 4 people hurt. 2 people had to have surgery. And then last year they did a basketball tournament. And our guys actually won the 3-on-3 tournament. It's cool. So stuff like that too, getting outside the station, getting together and working, doing stuff like that. That also builds camaraderie. But yeah, it's 4 people. 1 game, just bam, 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 just getting hurt. I'm like, are we too old for this? Like, what's going on?
Typical kind of middle-aged to older age guys doing sports, right?
Yeah.
No warm-up. We got
Right?
this. We used to be awesome in high school, and then you pull a hamstring.
Right?
Like, we're out. Or busted a knee, or whatever it is. That's awesome. Finishing up, some, I guess, a little bit of consumer advice for people. Let's do 2 things. Consumer advice for people who have their own homes, just basic fire safety. If anything happens, like whatever you tell people.
Okay.
And then the second question is, to anyone listening that maybe want to become a fireman, your advice for that too.
Yeah. Man, so the biggest thing, smoke alarms. Oh my goodness. We've ran several structure fires where there's no working smoke alarms in the house. We can't harp on that enough. And then, so last year I filled out a grant with Walmart, and we partnered with them, and it's like $2,000, and I bought smoke alarms for them. So we try to put on Facebook like, hey, we have smoke alarms here. If you guys don't have working smoke alarms in your home, call us.
Yeah.
So we usually go out and install smoke alarms. So we're trying to be proactive in that sense, but those are huge. We had an apartment fire over here on the north side of town. It was in the middle of the night, and whenever we got there, it was almost fully involved as another thing like the fiddle shop where the winds were just so high, and you start opening doors, well, it just feeds that fire. But whenever we got there, we heard smoke alarms, and everyone said that smoke alarm saved my life. A couple of them were jumping from a 2-story window. The smoke detectors are huge. They're huge. They save lives. They need to be in every home. So, and then going to school, reach out to me. Talk to me about it if you want. Just go to OSU, OKC, EOC, any fire service program, get your certifications, get your name out there, go volunteer. That was my biggest regret. Whenever I started, I was 18. I should have volunteered at a volunteer fire department and got knowledge of the job. Also, it goes towards your pension. So I've got 15 years in the pension right now. Well, if I'd have volunteered, I could have had 3 years before I got hired here, and I could have 18 years on the job. Yeah. And that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is getting on volunteer and learning the job. Added bonus. But it is an added bonus. So that would be my advice. Go volunteer somewhere, start going to school, get your certifications, and get your name out there. And we've got gentlemen here that have been doing ride-alongs, and he wants to get on the department. We're just not hiring right now, but he's been coming up here on his own time doing ride-alongs, and the guys are getting to know him. It's just it's a good thing. So
and one thing I bet people probably don't know is it's not easy to get a job at a fire department, especially one that's like probably close to your house, or one that it's a very very hard job to attain.
Very, very competitive. Yeah. So Edmond, I think they hired 9 a couple of years ago, and they said they had almost 600 applicants. So we had one position in September of last year, and we don't get near the pool Edmond does, but we had almost 50. There was like 46 for one position. So it's very competitive. And then, you gotta go through an extensive hiring process. And so,
yeah. Definitely come up and volunteer. That helps a lot, right? Just to make
Absolutely.
It helps if you've been here spending a few years volunteering, and then you get the option, the job that like the guys already know you. Like it kind of puts you at the top of the pile.
When I want to express, we rely on the volunteer departments.
Yeah.
So much. I mean, we've got 14 of them here, and one of them's a combination, but we rely on them so much because just our ambulance district. So if we're going out in the county, we've only got 2 people on the ambulance. Mm-hmm. Maybe we require a lift assist. Maybe there's a full arrest. We need more hands. So we rely on them a lot, not only on the EMS, but the fire as well. Yeah. So whenever we had that Simpson Road fire that I touched on a little bit, there was all 14 departments throughout the county on that fire. So we rely on those guys a lot. And they're working full-time jobs, and they leave their job just to come help somebody. Mm-hmm. So that says a lot about them. as well, and they're not getting paid. A lot of them aren't. They may get stipends or per diem per call, but volunteers, that's where it's at. I got a lot of respect for volunteers.
Yeah. Well, Chief, thank you so much. It's been awesome. Thanks for sharing some stories. Thanks for telling us a little bit about you and sharing your why and what you love to do. And I think the great lesson from this podcast is just to not take life for granted, right?
Exactly.
Be humble,
Yes.
and if you wanna become part of the team, or reach out and call a station, sit down with you, whatever it is, just ask some questions, and
Absolutely.
then come get some fire alarms too if you need any.
Yeah. No, I appreciate your time coming up here. I thank Billy for reaching out to you.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
awesome. But yeah, I appreciate your time coming all the way up here to talk to us, and hopefully we can get Guthrie on the map.
Definitely. Guthrie, Oklahoma, Guthrie, America, people. Get up here. It's great.
Yeah.
So thanks, man. I really appreciate you. And for everyone listening, we will catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And
Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome. This episode is brought to you by the Dog House OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Dog House have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Dog House. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC. And hopefully our pups will run into each other.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.